we'll start off. I think some more people are coming, but there's some space free. So Dennis was here also with us last year, and we were really happy to have him back. We really enjoyed his talk last year, and I think this year's topic is really trending, and we wanted someone to talk about this, and I'm really happy also to have him here today. So Dennis, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you. During these 2 days, you will hear a massive amount of high-quality talks from professionals in IT industry. As designers and developers, you will find out that you need to know quite a few things. In the first place, you need to know how to design and develop. And you will hear really a lot of high-quality talks on these particular topics. You'll also figure out that you need to be creative, and hopefully Denise taught you how to do this today. But there is one thing that we sometimes as designers and developers overlook in our work. It's not about internet, it's not about development, it's not about joy of development. It's all about people. Whatever we do, whatever we develop, whatever we produce, is all about people. Since recently, we have started talking about storytelling. Storytelling in the interfaces. We tell stories with comments in the code. We tell stories with the code itself to make it more human-friendly, so that people would interact with the code as they do in the real life. So every project that we develop has its own story. It contains a story and tells it to people. But what we sometimes forget is that this project doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in the outside world. And this same project, while containing the story in itself, tells another story to this outside world full of people. And today, I would like to tell you some stories about how technologies, projects, and products that we are using, we are developing, behave and interact with people in the world, not just within itself. Story 1, where people don't think about people and things go bad. In 2011, 5-year-old lorry driver at his father's Sowerby Bridge, West Yorkshire. It's a regular father and son Sunday. They're talking, they're watching news, they're reading newspapers, they have dinner. Later that Sunday, Steve says goodbye and drives 200 miles to Braintree in Essex to meet 34-year-old Joanne Lee, whom he has never met before. Next day, September 20th, 2011, they both are found dead in Steve's Vauxhall Astra on the outskirts of Braintree in Essex. The warning signs are put on the windows of the car, warning about the poisonous containment of this car. The couple killed themselves, mixing the poisonous gases. What had happened? It was internet. Internet killed these two. Both were members of the forum for people willing to commit a suicide. It is a community forum where people, the same as we are here, supporting, pushing people to commit a suicide. Even though it sounds sick, but that's true. It was internet that pushed these two to kill themselves. But why? Why does this happen? Can you imagine in real life somebody coming to a pub or to a club saying, "Hey guys, I'm going to catch a bus today, really looking forward." And another guy coming to him saying, well, very excited for you. And by the way, here is the recipe for my grandmother for mixing the poisonous gases. Never. Nobody. Why? Why is it so easy to be evil and mean while you're online? In January 2013, Government Office for Science in London released the report titled Foresight Future Identities 2013. This report had the aim of figuring out how the human identity will change in 10 years from now in the world of online technologies and social media. The report is based on results from 100 academics and 20 published evidence papers. What this report came out with is that as people, we have identity, but we don't have only one identity. We have a mix of overlapping identities in each and everybody. And this mix of identities is what builds our individuality. This is how we define ourselves. Based on different circumstances and different cases, different identities can reveal themselves in that or another person. As an example, those, for example, who work in more or less large companies, apparently there is one person in any company who's nice and dresses well and is very polite and shy while there are working hours. And then there is Friday, and there is a party. And this is the guy who drinks most, smokes most, is bullying, and goes completely nuts. This doesn't mean that this guy is bad. This just means that his other identity revealed itself under those circumstances. The report states that Internet doesn't create new identities for the people. Internet is the tool that reveals that or another identity in different persons. Moreover, some persons think that Internet actually revealed their real identity that they couldn't find in real life. One of the core reasons for this is so-called hyperconnectivity. When people are almost constantly connected to the Internet, to check email, to be online in social networks, to do different kinds of stuff. According to the statistics in the UK, in 2011, there were 7 billion devices connected to Internet. Think about it, 7 billion devices on the tiny island. By 2015, this number is expected to be 15 billion. 15 billion devices connected to Internet almost constantly. Another statistics tells us about social media usage in the UK. 2007, there were only 17% of people, Internet users, who were a member of that or another social network. In 2013, this number is 60%. Means 60% of all Internet users in the UK are staying online to send some status updates, to read some status updates, to chat with somebody. They are members of some social networks. But again, when we are talking about people online, Internet doesn't create new identities. It just helps you to reveal one. And this is what clinical psychologist Mac J says about identities, good and bad. Because identities can be good and can be bad. Remember those pictures where people are drawn with devil and angel on the shoulders? This is a metaphor for good and bad identities that we all have inside of us. So Mac J says, forget about having an identity crisis and get some identity capital. Do something that adds value to who you are. Do something that's an investment in who you might want to be next. Next time you're launching a project, you're writing something online, think about it. Think about who you might want to be next. And maybe this will stop you from writing things that you will be sorry for later. Story 2, where people start thinking about people. Thankfully, there are much more stories out there where people think about people, help people, and these stories are much more interesting than the sad stories. But I will tell you just a couple of those. Story 2.1, where people think about people and get benefit. There were a lot of interesting things happening in 2005. Bad and good things, like Hurricane Catherine in US, or new Pope. But myself, in 2005, I was still living in Ukraine. I was still doing boring job in local company that was related to web. But it was boring. So I decided to change something, and I just quit my job without plan B. I just decided to do things that I really like to do, not the things that pay my bills. In 2005, I was really into Clone content management system. That is the open source content management system driven by the community. As a front-end developer, I noticed some flaws and some improvements that I would like to fix in Plone. But there was one problem. As I said, Plone is a community-driven project. So if you are willing to be a contributor to this system, you need to sign a contributor agreement that says that you grant the rights for your code to the community, to the Plone Foundation in this case. So far so good, but the problem was, I was here, the paper I had to sign was here. Of course, we have some horses that run to US from Ukraine, but it's not a problem. This was the problem. The visa I need to get to US. And it was quite problematic for me. So instead of going to US to sign the paper, I've created a website on Plone with all the improvements and all the features included that I would like to see in Plone core itself. But of course, I didn't do this just to please myself. Well, at least not only for that. But I created detailed how-tos and tutorials on how to implement these features, why I want them to be implemented, and step-by-step instructions on how to implement them. I pointed Plone community to this website, and Plone community thankfully accepted it really, really well. So since 2005, I'm the core contributor to Plone. 2 months after I quit my job without plan B, and about a couple of weeks after I launched the site, I've had a company of my own with 2 major clients willing to occupy 100% of my working time with interesting and well-paid job. This wouldn't happen if I would be selling stuff. This could happen only because I was willing to give back to the community that gave something to me for free. The wish to give back was the engine of this process. In this particular case, I've got benefit, but it was driven by the wish to help people. Story 2.2, where people think about people and enjoy doing so. It's March 2012, Nottingham, England. Claire Sutcliffe meets Linda Sandvik. They go to the pub and they get drunk. While drunk, they decide to change the world. Everybody knows this feeling when they get drunk, right? But they decided not to conquer the world and change it, but to start with teaching UK kids how to program. UK kids in the schools. After 1 year of discussions and meetings and thinking and brainstorming, on April 16th, 2013, the project called Code Club has begun, has came to life. What is Code Club? Code Club is a nationwide network of free, volunteer-led after-school coding clubs for children aged 9 to 11. This is the original goal of Code Club. Since recently, Code Club is a worldwide network with about 1,580 code clubs led by volunteers and enthusiasts all over the world. Why? Why is Code Club so successful? Why do people wish to invest their time without any benefit into this project? Getting back to the report I mentioned in the story one of the implications of that report in the section Skills, Employment and Education stated the following. A critical issue for the future will be to ensure that individuals have the knowledge, understanding, and technological literacy to enable them to take control of their own online identities and to be aware of their online presence and how it could be used by others. So what Code Club technically does is they're following this rule and they want kids to be computer and programming literate when they become adults, and then they can control their lives and they can control their identities. So why Code Club gets so much attention? Why people are willing to help with a project where they don't get benefit? Code Club is the phenomenon by itself. It started with a very simple one-page website asking for volunteers to help and write projects for the club, for the kids to start learning programming in the schools. It also started with one simple tweet. One day after that tweet, Code Club has been in Wired and BBC Tech. This is what Code Club writes on their website about their business model. Code Club is and always will be free. It's one of our core beliefs, and we aim to keep it this way. Code clubs should be totally volunteer-led, so please don't charge for your clubs. It is free, and it will always be free, so people don't get benefit. This happens because of the fact that every one of us has this positive identity in us that is willing to help people. People internally always want to help people. And people become happy when they help others. When they feel that they helped somebody, people feel happy. Code Club has a bit tough but realistic goal by 2015 to have Code Club in 25% of British schools. That 25% doesn't sound that much, but in absolute numbers, it's about 5,250 schools. It's really huge for a project that is less than 1 year old. But what Code Club does is that it builds the generation of programming literate people who know how to use technologies. And the way these kids are taught might make them to want in the future to build projects not because of the technology itself, but because they want to help people. Story 3, where people think about people and technology helps them. It's hard to believe now, but there were times when there were no web cameras. No Skype, no selfies, nothing. It lasted until 1991, when something in computer lab of the University of Cambridge happened. This is what went in Stafford. Fraser writes about this. He was working in this computer lab. It started back in the dark days of 1991, when the World Wide Web was little more than a glint in CERN's eye. So what happened? Computer lab in the University of Cambridge was quite large back then. And there were quite a few people working there. And they were academics. And academics, as programmers, really, really love coffee. They just can't work without coffee. This is instead of blood. People are running on coffee. And for all these people working in computer lab, there was only one coffee machine. Can you imagine that? The huge company with one coffee machine. The problem was that the computer lab was quite spread out. So people working in one end of the computer lab had to go to get coffee to another end of the computer lab. Imagine the frustration when they find the pot empty. Just think about you wake up and you don't get morning coffee. Damn, this is 10 times better than going from one end of the lab to another to find the empty pot. So what these guys made, they were geeks. They set up the first ever web camera for showing the state of the coffee pot. So the guys working in one end of the lab could go online on the local network and see whether it makes sense to go to that pot or somebody on that end of the lab will actually brew some while they're going. They wrote software that was called X-Coffee. The coffee machine has been put next to the Trojan room in the University of Cambridge in this laboratory. And this web camera became known to the world as Trojan room coffee pot. It's the most well-known web camera in the world so far. On this picture you see some picture from like when the camera and the pot were actually working. And this is it's really not clear there, but there is the screen and there is a hand here, and this hand is pressing the button. This is the moment when Trojan room coffee pot has been switched off in 2001. It's dead now. Fast forward 13 years, and it is September 2004 in KB Hilltop Stables, Charlotte, Iowa. Frankly, it was September 2004 everywhere in the world, not only in Iowa at that moment. Bev Holzrichter, the owner of these stables, can tell us an amazing story of how the technology literally saved her life. Since 2000, Bev streamed online using the web cameras and internet, streamed the foaling process in the stables for those who are interested in horses and foals and to do some research. She was very impressed with how many people were actually interested in watching the stream online. So in 2004, during yet another foaling season, she was, as usual, streaming the process on the internet. But there was one horse, one mare called Sierra, who couldn't give birth that easy. And Bev was watching the process, sitting at home and watching the stream that she herself was streaming online. When she noticed that Sierra actually gave birth, she came to the stables to help Sierra and the newborn to take care of them. When she came to the stables, she didn't notice that a horse from the nearby stables, she broke down the fence to Sierra's stables, and she wanted to steal the newborn. When Bev came into the stable, she didn't notice this. So the moment she approached the newborn, Sierra, the mother of this newborn, kicked her in the chest 3 times. Imagine horse kick in a chest 3 times. This very moment, hundreds of people all over the world were watching the stream and actually saw what had happened at that moment. That very moment, people started calling 911 from all over the world. When paramedics came to the stables, they were a bit confused and were really surprised and were asking why. Why exactly here they got calls from US, from different states, from Europe, from Australia, with calls asking for help for this particular woman. It was internet and web cameras that saved her life. This is what Bev says about internet now. The internet is my hero. We hear so many bad news stories about the internet and about webcams, but this has such a happy ending. Internet literally saved her life. Her husband had to come home not sooner than 3 days after. He was a lorry driver, and this happened on Friday. He wouldn't be back before Monday. If not internet, she would just die in the stables. There are many, many more stories about how internet saves lives. For example, the story of Doug Henning. Doug had surgery, just regular surgery in the hospital. But after the surgery, when he came back home, he felt himself a bit dizzy and he had fever. So he just Googled fever after surgery. And he found some disease that looked like his symptoms. And the disease was called, it is still called that way, pulmonary embolism. For those who don't know, pulmonary embolism is the thing that if you don't treat it, you're dying. You're just dying because it's the thing in your blood that blocks everything. He couldn't believe this because he found it on the internet. People write a lot of things on the internet. So he was waiting, but things got worse and worse and worse, and he had to call his doctor and tell him what he actually found on the internet. So doctor made all the checkups, and he confirmed that Doug had pulmonary embolism. And he started the treatment, and thankfully, Doug has been saved. This is what Doug says now. Don't be afraid to get an unlikely, even exotic sounding potential problem checked out. No one will laugh at you. Google is definitely your friend. This is one more story where internet saves life. Another story. Atlanta City Councilor Kwanzaa Hall, while being outside, just walking around the city, saw a woman collapsing on the street. She lost consciousness. He was about to call 911, but he found out that his phone is dying. There is not enough charge to stand the call to 911. What he did is sending a simple tweet. Need a paramedic on corner of John Wesley, Dobbs, and Jackson Street. Woman on the ground, unconscious. Please retweet. Now, you know what? People did. People did retweet, and people called 911. And paramedics came and saved that woman because of the tweet, because of internet, and because of technology. A lot of people in this room might know this guy. It's Amit Gupta. In September 2011, he has been diagnosed with leukemia. He was in need of emergency transplantation of bone marrow. But there was no donor in the US. So what he did was establishing a campaign, a simple website where he asked for help in finding a donor. After 100 drives, 7,000 reblogs, Facebook posts, retweets, he found a donor. This is what he's writing in his Twitter status now. Diagnosed with leukemia in September 11, recovering and re-evaluating life. These stories are just the tip of the iceberg. There are many, many, many more stories where internet and technology saves people, helps people, and makes people better. It's hard to imagine, but during 45 minutes of this talk, there are about 9,450 babies born in the world. It's 9,450 potential users of the projects and products and technologies you're using now and you're developing now. It's 9,450 people who will be using your product and your projects. I would like to tell you just one thing. Next time you develop something, think of a story that your product might be involved into. Think about people involved in this story. And maybe you will want to make your product a bit better. And your product's story will have happy ending. Thank you. Nope, not here. Does anybody have any questions? Wonderful. Either I was not really clear, or I was too clear.
I was actually, I could listen to you the whole day. I was considering actually hiring you for a whole day, and you telling me
I'll
stories the whole time.
My bank account number.
So, questions?
Anybody? Please? I'm sorry? What I'm currently working on? That's a good question. I have no idea. The problem is that I'm technically a web developer since 2001, I think. At the same time, I'm a designer. I've graduated from drawing school, and where we were studying like sculpture, history of arts, and all these things. So from time to time, I'm a developer. From time to time, I'm a designer. But currently, I don't like both. As you can see from my talk, I'm just probably in that age where I start thinking about more global things than just working on something. I want to work on myself. I want to improve myself. And that's the thing, that's the point, and that's the message of my talk today. Work on yourself and be a better person, be a better guy or girl. Yes, Denise?
So then what's the story that you want to be telling about yourself? Like in 5 years, what's the story that you want to be telling?
I don't know, I'm still writing it.
Can you repeat the question for the last stream?
Yes, well, can I?
I'll just say it louder. I asked him, what's the story that he wants to be telling about himself 5 years from now? He's working on himself, and what's he shooting for?
Yes, so you've heard my answer? Yes, please. What do you mean? As I said, I'm working on myself. This is just the ideas I have in my head. I was really when I originally I read this story about the couple committing a suicide. I was really shocked with this, and I was really this idea of how easy it is to to be mean and rude online. This idea always bothered me because I had examples in my personal life. I saw people who are really, really nice guys in real life. Once they go online, they become real assholes. And it's all over. Probably anybody sitting in this room can name somebody who's behaving like this. And it's really weird why this happens. So I started researching and started to. I'm very interested in sciences and in psychology, so I was trying to understand why this happens. Why is it so easy to be a different person online? So originally it was from my wish to talk about people. I don't want to talk about trends because there will be a lot of trendy topics. There will be a lot of things, but as I said, it's not about internet. It's not about development. It's about people. Whatever we do is about people. People are the core of anything we do. We are doing things not because, sometimes we do things because we want to do these things, or because it's trendy, or because it's somehow pays the bills. But we also need to think, and need to consider whatever we do. We have to think about people using what you're doing. Yeah. Yes, please. What inspires me? Life. Just go outside. During the 45 minutes of my talk, that many babies have been born without our participation, guys. Seriously. There are so many wonderful things outside of this room and outside of the computer that people just should get inspired by real life. That's pretty much it. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. So now we have time for a break.